Good morning, everyone. Right. So, how many of you have a Visual Studio 2015 ready? Ready, that it's working totally fine. We have the Universal Windows tools. And actually, I saw that. We have actually the options you should have. That is, once you open your Visual Studio after your first installation, you got new project. In this, install templates, Windows and Universal. Inside Universal, you should have these options. Most probably, some people, I don't know why, when they have done through typical setup, they have only the install Universal Windows tools option open. If you have that, install it. Just click on the option and click OK, and all these options will automatically get installed within about 1.5 hours depending on your connection. Because we do need this, we need the blank app, Universal Windows platform blank app to work on it. So for those who are seeing Visual Studio for the first time, this is basically how it looks like. And once you first open your Visual Studio, this is the most probably this will be the first thing that pops up. You have your options inside the basic, the new project, the project that open from source control. Source control is basically when you're collaborating with others and when you're actually doing an app in real time with the entire team. And that's basically when you use source control. How exactly you can use source control, we'll talk about it later on. Now, just open a new project. As I said, installed, templates, Visual C#, Windows, blank app. And give any name that you want for it. And then create your own name to this app code. So let that be. And have anybody actually started using the Visual Studio till now? Other than for the first console app and for the first console logo program, and anybody else actually opened the Visual Studio part? Yes, that's understood. After that, okay, for some of you, what might happen is once you open it and once you click create app option, they might tell you that it is not possible for the Visual Studio 2015 to access your documents folder to save your project. That's basically because Visual Studio needs to run as an admin process for the simple reason that it creates changes in your PC's major set of files. Right? So if that happens, go to your start menu, search for Visual Studio, right click and run as administrator. Cool? Just in case any problem happens once you first click the create app or publish app button. Cool. So once you first create an app, this is the first window that pops up. First window, as we said in the Skype session, this code that is already there, that's already built in by default. This is called template 10, the basic template that Windows provides you for free, of course, without you needing to do half of the stuff that's required. Because every app, irrespective of what you make it, how you make it, or what are the capabilities it has, or what it does, this code needs to be there. So the only reason it's given to you already as a developer is for the simple reason that you don't need to keep writing it again and again. It's for you to save time. And for those who were in there for the session where I explained it, this first part that's written is basically for those who know C and C++, that's called the header files part. Like where you access the major header files that's required for your program. And in between there you can see that tiny dot. Dot is called the accessor. It accesses the functions that are saved in this namespaces. Now what exactly are namespaces? Namespaces are spaces in your memory that's named for a particular reason. But of course, the simple reason is that that space contains a defined set of functions that you can access using these dots. Right? There are various kinds of namespaces, and again you don't need to know all of them because it's once you start writing your program, your Visual Studio itself will automatically suggest to you which all namespaces to use and which all functions to use. So you don't need to worry about that later. And then, right, this your IDE or the integrated developers environment, and this is where your major code will be. And later on, once you start designing your XAML user interface, that will also pop up in this big huge area. This over here is a solution explorer, and below that your properties, which will get populated once you start using your XAML controls. Now, does everybody at the moment know what's the difference between XAML and C#? Everyone knows. Is there anybody who doesn't know? Right. What XAML does is XAML is basically the design language. It designs your user interface. It designs what your app should look like. And C# is what does the functions. XAML will give you buttons. XAML will give you text. And with C#, you can say what should happen when the button is clicked. Right? So with XAML, you can just click on a button and nothing is going to happen. With C#, you can say that once the button is clicked, you can go to another page, change the color of text, change the text, blah 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 blah, depends on what you want. Right. So, we'll first start with a simple app. Last session I gave them an option whether we should go for an interactive, pretty good app, or should we just go with a simple informative app. We'll start with a simple app, then you get a bigger idea of how exactly you can go around things, rearrange things and stuff like that. And again, the only reason we're starting off with a simple app is because we have a fairly good idea of how to use the controls. Now, as you can see in the Solution Explorer, there are quite a few options. The first one starts with App 4, that is basically the name of the app that we have given when you first created the app that printer popped up. The universal windows shows the platform on which it works. Below that, properties, references, assets. Well, basically, properties is, it contains a few functions, or basically a few files that it needs to run. You don't need to worry about that. Then there is references. References again, for those who have heard about APIs, well, APIs are basically packages that you can use from an external source. For example, you can get these APIs from Twitter, from Facebook, from LinkedIn. You can get, it depends. Okay? You can get these APIs and you can link them to your app from Bing, from Google. You can link them to your app so that you can use their services, you can use their activities in your app. For example, you need to add navigation in your app. The only thing you need to do is add an API from Google. So what happens is, once you add that, your app will have a map. Your app will have all the capabilities that Google Maps has, which is navigation, directions, roads, traffic, whatever it is, it will be automatically added to your app. The only thing you need to do is get the API and link it to your app. We'll come to that part later on in the session because that's a bit complicated for beginners. So we'll just start with Tommy. And then, so that's basically what references are for. You have a lot more what you can do in references, but then let's just keep it at that for a moment. Then assets. Assets is basically the media, the photos, the videos, and the music files that your app needs. It can be any sort of, any size, any sort, any shape, any color. That's totally fine. Now, how to add assets? We'll come to that later. App.xaml is basically the first screen that pops up once you open your app. Actually, app.xaml.cs is the screen that pops up first. Now, the reason that app.xaml.cs is the first window that pops up is the app.xaml.cs contains the entire amalgamated code of your entire app. It need not, the thing is, in an app, you basically have different pages. Each page is a different section. Each page can have a different function. For example, you can have a sign-in page. You can have a create account page. You can have a page for sharing your social activities. So stuff like that. You can have a page for taking a photo. So different pages. So there are going to be a lot of different pages which have different activities. And so basically, your app.xaml.cs is going to contain all the code from all the different pages together. So for you as a developer, that's going to be a bit complicated for you to navigate through all that entire huge chunk of code. So that's why we basically have the concept of pages. Once you first create an app, by default, there will be main page.xaml created, right? Every app needs a main page. Now the reason why we are insisting on having a main page is, inside your app.xaml and app.xaml.cs, the template code that's already there by default contains a few built-in functions for the main pages. As in, once you first open the app, it should open up to the main page. So that part is already written for you. You don't have to change that. So for a beginner, for a developer, this part is very simple because you just create an app and directly know what your first page should be. You don't need to worry about when it should go to the first page, which page it should go to. All that is already done for you, and even the first page is created for you. Now, the main page contains two parts, and any page that you create contains two parts: the .sample part and the .sample.cs part. Again, as I said, once you know the difference between .sample and .sample.cs, .sample is basically the designer, right? That's why you have this blank user interface for you to play around with. And .sample.cs is, as I said, the functioning language, where you should actually add the different functions you need for the different components. And in the .sample, you'll actually add the controls that you need. Now, where to get the controls from is from this toolbox that may or may not be there for you. If it's not there for you, click on View at the top menu, go down, and somewhere in 3/4 you will see the toolbox. Okay, the reason it's called the toolbox is because all the tools that you need as available there. And they'll group the basic controls that you will need in common XAML controls. There's an even bigger list down here called the all XAML controls. Don't get into that at the moment, it's going to get a bit complicated because these common XAML controls range from pointer to time picker. Okay, two options. Do you guys want to go through each of these controls now, or do you want to start using them first? Use them. Right. If you start using them, you won't be using all of them in this session itself. We'll be covering 5 or 6 of them max. Cool. Okay. The first control, pointer, we won't be using that because pointer is basically that's gone out of fashion. Pointers are basically using touch screens, basically to show you where the cursor is. But then nowadays, since touch screens have advanced so much that you don't actually need a cursor to show you where exactly activity you're pointing at. So that's gone out of fashion. So I would recommend you guys not to use it because it will make your app look a bit out of place. Then comes in border and border. Borders is again, you wouldn't actually need to use borders because there are two reasons. Once you first, like as a beginner, once you start making an app, we have a tendency to give everything a fixed shape and a fixed size. So when that happens, once you change your app's platform, because at the moment, this app is basically the design that's is basically for a 5-inch phone, right? But the universal this platform is such that you create an app for any platform, for any device, and that app is going to run across all of these devices seamlessly without you needing to do anything. Because everything will resize on its own is what you expect. Cool? Everything will resize only if you give an auto size to everything. I'll show the difference between having an auto size and having a fixed static size. But then as you can see over here, these options help you to like design for different platforms. Because yeah, now this is for a 23-inch desktop. Again, this is basically your LED desktop monitor. It need not be exactly 23 inches, but it's optimized for 23 inches. And there is 13.3, 12-inch tablets, 8-inch tablets, 6-inch phones, 5-inch phones. The reason why we are starting with 5-inch phones is because phones are the most common ones, common things that people develop apps for. Because PC apps are basically, you don't actually start off with PC apps for the simple reason that you need to have some quality content in there. You need to have something that actually makes people want to download them, buy them, use them. So that's why we're starting off with phone apps because they're simple to make, small in size, so you don't have to fill up one area and stuff like that. So first off, we use a button because buttons are really fun to work with. So you can see the right. So that's how a button basically looks like. So a default button will look like this: a greyish background with black text on it, and this is actually zoomed in with only the button control. Fit all, and this is how your button will look like on your screen. body. The basic thing for Visual Studio is once you add a control, its default orientation is set to top left. Wherever you add, whatever you add, it basically go to the top left. See? Right, and another important tool that you as a developer will use is your document outline. Document outline basically tells you what your app contains, in what order it contains, and under what control it comes in. Now, when I say under what control it comes in, is because you can order different controls based on different properties that you need. Because you can group them together under a specific size or specific shape that gives it an order, and then you can give a lot of properties to it at the same time. For example, you can give it all the same color, same background, probably the same properties to go to a separate thing once you click it, stuff like that. So again, once you create an app, default template 10 comes with a grid. Okay, a grid is basically a container on your main page. You don't need to worry about a grid because a grid is there for you always. And a grid is one of the most simple controls to work around with, because a grid can contain rows and columns. A grid can contain, you can give it a color, you can give it a shape, you can give it a background. So since you have a big grid, it's preferred that you don't do whatever background or color you want into directly into it. It's preferred that you create separate grids inside it and give it, for the simple reason that you can keep controlling it separately. Otherwise, once you create a small change in the size of this grid, it's going to affect all your controls within it. Right? I hope you guys get the point. If anybody has a doubt, just raise it at that point itself. Cool? So for now, we have added a button. And then we'll keep grid for the moment. We'll add a text block. Right? Now, once we zoom into them, yeah, as you can see, since the default orientation is top left, both of them are pretty much overlapping each other, so you can't actually see any difference. And also, there is another problem. Since they both are in the top left corner, once you first run your app, what happens is any app which is run in the debug mode. Debug mode is basically the mode for developers to find out if there is any problem with their app, to know if there is anything that they should change, any design that they should change, any functions that should be changed. For such conditions, for those functions is basically what debug mode is for. So it's not recommended, it is understood that you should always use debug mode until and unless you're ready for release. Once you're ready for release, you have a separate mode called release mode debug, where you can run your app in the release mode, which will actually run your app in a simulator or an emulator. If you have asked for a 5-inch phone, it will actually open up an emulator for a 5-inch phone. If you ask for a 6-inch phone, a 6-inch phone, a desktop. So you can actually see how your app looks like on it. Again, so as I said, since the orientation is there, I can actually move the black thing. So the buttons are over there. So at the moment, what you should first do is move them off from it. Again, so open a document outline, click on the button, right? As I said, the properties toolbar has now opened and it's populated with different properties of it. And in these categories you have brush. Brush is basically the different colors or backgrounds that you can give. You can give a background to the button, you can give a border brush, and you can give a foreground. Now what's the difference between the background, the border brush and the foreground? The background is basically the greyish color that the button has in the background. The border brush is simply the border. And the foreground is the color of the text that's there in the app, on the button. Okay? So that's what's there in brush. Then we come down to appearance. In appearance is basically, of course, how clear or how plain the button is. Whether it's visible or collapsed. Whether it's visible or collapsed, you basically be using that property for places where you need to open up different options certain option is selected. Again, you can change these from the C# code, so you don't need to do this at the moment. Then there is border thickness. Border thickness is how thick your border should be. I'll show you how exactly these change. Right? Okay, drop some data. I changed the left border thickness to 100. So what happened was, from the 2 that was there earlier, it became 100. Right? So basically this border thickness is how thick your, okay, now if we come to the border brush, you can actually see the difference. Right. Sorry. It was black earlier, so you wouldn't actually, no, it was actually plain transparent, so you would actually see the difference. Now that we've given this really awkward color, it looks weird. So that was the left border. You have a right border, top border, bottom border, whatever it is. So they have actually put it 2 for simple reason that it looks good. Okay. You can change it, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can make it like 0, so that you don't have a border at all. But then again, it depends on your design. Some designs require a border, some designs don't require a border, stuff like that. Then there is a requested theme. Theme is light and dark, depends on the laptop or a PC. Click mode release. Again, so there are different types of buttons. There are some buttons that are for those who have seen the help buttons, such as you have a help icon next to an entire field that you should fill in. And when you bring your cursor over the help button, it gives you an idea of what exactly you should fill in there. So for those buttons, we have the over option. Now the press button is basically, once you just type in passwords, at the right side you have a button that shows the I button. When you click that, you have an option to see your password. And that action is valid for as long as you're pressing the button. Right? So that is why the press button is there. Press action is there. And then there is a release action. Release action is you press it and you leave it. Right? So that's basically how you use a button. You click the button, that's you release the button, you click it and you release it. And that's the click mode. You can define it basically what you want. And then the content. Content is what's written in the button. So A, B, C. Right. Then there is a layout. Layout is the orientation, the width, the size. The width and the height is at the moment set to auto. Now this, as I said, is basically what's recommended for the simple reason that you resize according to your platform, according to your device. Then, okay, row span, column span, row and column. You won't be using these at the moment for the simple reason that you don't actually have different rows and columns within your grid to place your controls in. Okay? If you had, okay, fine, I'll show you why you would actually use it. In your document outline, go to your grid. Remember I told you that you can have different rows and columns within your grid, which would actually help you to align stuff. Suppose you add 2 rows. Okay? And again, in rows, you have the size of the rows is given as 1 star. Okay, what 1 star means, you have 3 options in this. It can be auto, pixels, or stars. Stars is, it fills in whatever space is left. Auto is, again, it fills in whatever space is left, but it resizes to what is its content. Right? So if there is no content, the size of it is going to be 0. star is will be filling up whatever space is left. So at the moment I have put in two rows. So what happens is I have given both of them 1. Okay. So if you have more than a single row, it takes in a ratio. It takes in a ratio of what exactly should be the height of each row within the grid. So at the moment it's 1:1, which means both of them should have the same size. And since both of them have star, it means both of them should have the same size and fill out the entire grid. So what basically happens now is the grid is going to have two rows, which is going to be like half and half. On the other hand, if I have given like okay, if I give 1 pixel because 1 pixel like really tiny, give it something like 50 pixels, and so that's the second row. And the first row is going to be star. So what's going to happen now is, just a second, yeah, you can see this line over here. This wasn't there earlier. This shows, see, once you bring a cursor over here, this shows that it is locked with the 50 pixels static size. And over here, it's locked, it's not basically locked, it's 1 star. Okay. Now, that's what you actually use your rows and columns for. Now, let's get back to adding our next block. Right, we have added next block. So that's there. Now, we go to the layout of the next block because at the moment it's overlapping with the button. Let's just move it to the center of the page. Center.
What was
Star. Star means it fills in whatever space is left. Okay. So once there are 2 or more columns of rows, if there are 2 or more rows which have star, after, okay, wait, I'll show it again. See, I added 3 rows, okay, and all 3 of them have the size star, which is why all 3 of them are equally distributed, okay. Now suppose for the last row, I give it a size of 50 pixels, okay, it will have the size of 50 pixels height. The rest of the space that's left is divided among the other 2 rows at a ratio of 1:1. Which means whatever space is left is equally shared. Now suppose the second row, okay, I give it a size of auto. There is no content in it, that's why it totally collapsed. So what's basically there at the moment is the first column, first row, the second row that's collapsed which you can't actually see, and the third row here with the 50 pixels static size. Now suppose the 50 pixels are making like 100 pixels.
If some content would be there will be
for the 50 pixels.
for auto.
For auto, if content is there, it will have something. Okay. Now we have, as I said, the second row is empty now. It's why it's collapsed, right? Now we'll go to the, okay, our button is basically, yeah, a button is basically in 0, 0. That means the first row, first column. Okay. Now suppose I bring it to the second row. See? Now it has something. It fits in exactly according to that. The other one which had okay, 199. Sorry. Other one which had a size of 199 pixels is still 199 pixels. And the first row, since it had a size of star, which means it fills out what was left, fills out what was space left. Okay. Now suppose I add one more thing to the second row, which has a size that's greater than the button size. The second row is going to push up. Why does it push up?
Because it should be automatically.
If it's automatically. But why doesn't it go down?
Because it has
Pixels are static. Exactly. That's what basically happens.
Suppose both go auto, how would it?
Which goes? The first and second row is auto.
Last one, the first and last one. Now the
First and last two auto.
The lower one is static now, so it pushes up if we increase the button size.
Yeah.
So what if both of them were?
If both of them were auto, both would be collapsed, and you can actually see only the second row with the button line on top.
And both were star, then how would
If
it?
both were star, which was the first and the bottom one.
Yeah.
What would happen is the entire, okay, I'll show you exactly. The entire thing is going to be divided into 3 sections, but the second one is going to have only the width of the button. Whatever space is left in the top and bottom is going to be automatically filled up with the other 2 columns.
So that second row would come right in the middle then.
Second row would come right in here. See, so you make it star 1. See? Equal, second row right. Good. So we have a button there. And let's just add text block. So let's do this. Say text block goes to the top right corner. Even if you create rows and columns and you have worked on a specific row or column before, by default it goes to the 0 row 0 column. Okay? And it's up to you to keep changing it. For example, if I wanted the last row, yeah, I'll be putting it in row 2. So the text box comes in that row, but since it's star, it does not really care about the text block size. Okay? So just stay as star, just stay, fill up the space that's what's there. Let's just change the text of the text block to okay. So now we have a button called ABC and we have a text block which has a content called blah blah blah. Let's just go do the, we have gone to the C# basis. So once we get to the C# part of the code, what do we have? We have a namespace called app4, we have a public sealed partial class called main page, and we have a public main page. I don't think you guys will be familiar with the concept of partial. Now as I said in the beginning, the app.xamarin.cs is going to contain the entire amalgamated code for the entire thing, right? So the app.xamarin.cs is basically the app4 namespace. App4 namespace is your entire app. Okay? Now the major concept of this partial classes, the main page is going to be a huge class. Okay? And each class can be separately defined in separate pages. Again, now the reason I am saying this is, you can have a partial sealed partial class called main page, which derives its functions or its properties from a predefined control called page, which you can't change again. Okay? You can have one class called main page like this. You can also define another main page class in a totally different page. The only thing you should do is call it the public sealed partial class. What would happen is, whatever code you would write in that separate page, plus whatever code is there in this page, all of this is going to come together into your app.xamarin.cs. Right? So that's basically the concept of partial class. Don't need to worry about that because that will all happen on this code. The only reason I explained it is that you have a very good idea of what is going to happen with all your code. Now, you have the button called ABC and text block called blah blah blah. I need you to pay attention to this. The button's name, I'll change it to ABC. Okay? That's not going to make a difference. I can call it DEF also. The text of the button is going to remain ABC instead. What I have done is just given it a name called DEF, so that once I start using it in my code, I know exactly what my button is called. Okay? So that once I need to keep using it, once I'm playing with it, I don't need to get confused because once I have like 5 or 6 buttons, it's going to be called button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, and then I'll be wondering which button is going to do what. So you shouldn't do that because that would be like very bad programming on your part, because as a developer, it's not expected that you are going to be the only one working on your code. You're going to have like 5 or 6 people who are working on the same bit of code and they need to understand what exactly each button does or what it leads to. Right? So I give it a name called DEF, and the text block also I'll give it a name this DB. Okay? Now the button. Why exactly do you have a button? Because you need to do something. Basically. This is why you have the event handlers or the action buttons. So for a button, these are the properties that's predefined. Okay? What it means is, once you click a button, what happens? Once the context of the data that the button is in changes, what happens? Complicated, give it. Double tap, that is basically, okay, what these functions do is, it creates separate events for separate actions on the button. Okay? I can have an action for when I click the button once, click the button, not leave it. Okay? Click the button means tap it and leave it. I can have a context where it's double tap. Okay? That means I tap it once, leave it, I tap it again. So that time two things are going to happen. The first tap is going to create one event, second tap is going to create another event. So you should be very clear as to what a button should do. If you're clear, then you can have a fairly good idea of which one to use from this. This is unloaded, this tab, this size change, right tab. This is basically about 20-25 functions that a button can do. You don't need to know all of them. You just need to know 3 of them. Tap, click, and double tap. Okay? Drag under, drag enter, drag over, drop. That's going to be like useless. Holding is again what I said for the password. You keep holding your button. Whatever you do is you're going to create code in your C# that says okay, wait, I'll show you how exactly C# works now. Suppose I do the button click. I just double click over there. Okay, let's just go back to gameplay.java for a second while I show. When I double click over there, the def underscore click is created. And my example.c is opened, where there is a function called def click with whatever objects and stuff it required, that's already there. Everything is already defined for me, I just need to use it. Okay? So inside this curly braces. Okay, what happens is once def is clicked, what do I want? I want to change my text block, which is tb. I name it tb chart. TBs, and to change text to hello, right? Okay, so what happened now? If my def, that the button is clicked, I want the text to change from blah 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 to hello, hello, hello. Does it work? Let's see. So let's run it on our machine and try it. Done. So we have the button called ABC, we have the text block called blah blah blah, and once we click ABC, it will, right? This is basically one of the most simplest things you can do, because you basically wrote one line of code. tb.text will be hello hello. That's only thing you wrote. What else will change is table properties, change what text will be there, what colors will be there, stuff like that. So this is one of the most simplest things you can do with C#, one of the most simplest apps you can make. That is, you click a button, you can change the color. What the hell? Okay, TB is basically the text block. Foreground. Because if you remember, I said that when you change the foreground, the text color changes. Is equal to. Now, you can give red. Now, who knows what is a UTF-16 coded page? What? A UTF-16 coded. Okay. Okay. So what exact RGB code because it's a color.
Hexadecimal code.
Hexadecimal code. If you have hexadecimal code, you give it, it automatically changes to that color once your DEF button is clicked. Now, if you want to know how to get the exact hexadecimal code, let's go back to the properties. Brush. You give it a solid color. This over here is the hexadecimal code for pure white. This is white 0000. For white, it's FF because it's all one, which means R, G, and B are all there. We'll come to that part later. That comes in the design part. For now, let's just stay with this. So for now, we play with these two controls, and then we have the image control. This is there. Once you have the image control, you can, okay, as you can see over here, the size of the image is set to 100 and 100. With this 100, height. Set it to auto. What just happened? It crashed because there is nothing in it. So, to put something in it, is why you have this source bar over here. Okay. In source, once you open it, this shows you what all are there